And that is how I lost my tennis ball.
And that's a fantastic story. We were going over number 763 of our apology list.
Wait, I have to interrupt. Did the doctors have to use, like, forceps to get it out? And how long were you bent over?
Oh, it was terrible. They actually had to cut some things out there, so...
Oh.
And thus his Flemish powers were born.
Children.
Well, there you go, free vasectomy. Moral of the story, and positive all the way out. Who are we apologizing to now?
People that needed vasectomies.
Oh.
Oh, damn.
Wow, that was a quick little warning.
Sorry.
Anyway,
wait,
guys.
wait.
What?
How come we have to apologize, but Eminem doesn't? What's with this whole thing?
Have you met Eminem? Do you think he'll ever apologize for anything?
Fuck no!
Exactly.
Especially after what he did with Insane Con Posse? No.
Well, he dropped a new album Friday.
I'll go over that on my own channel.
Stuck in my past, about to relapse. I keep running back to you.
Anyway, though, guys, I would love to do the introduction this week, but I'm going to hand it over to the actual owner, well, one of the two actual owners of this podcast, so, Hubs.
Oh, is that my cue? I can do this now?
Yes.
Just start.
Chop, chop! We're
So
waiting!
welcome back to What Grinds Our Gears. I am your host, well, the Hubs. And sitting across from me on my desktop is Schweebs and Phoenix.
Oh my god!
Yay! Oh my god!
In between them is V.
Dun, dun, dun.
We mustn't forget Larry.
Hi, guys. I was wondering what you're doing over here, idiot. Sitting over here on the fucking cooler.
We got Vinny to finally watch Christopher Titus's Love is Evil.
And
That was funny.
And that created Larry. So, Larry is Vinny's inner... Okay, fuck it. Inner...
Here, let me explain. Now, when we use the word if you watch the Christopher Titus thing, he also explains it's not making fun of the mentally challenged. It is just calling out some people that have all the full functions but choose to be stupid. That's all it is.
That's exactly what it is.
What about
Christopher
zombies?
Titus. Hilarious.
Zombies.
Zombies! No, I'm just kidding. Not zombies.
Anywho, while they argue about zombies here, the beautiful little children, today we are actually starting off the last few episodes of Season 2 by going over Monster Month for October, as we're discussing dragons.
See, that's why I said V's name that way. I knew he was going to do that with the word dragon.
Yes, dragons, history and lore, as old as fucking time itself. We're dragons amongst the dinosaurs. We're dinosaurs amongst dragons. We will never truly know. But ever since European and Asian lore, dragons have been everywhere as either inspirational creatures that could shapeshift and have offspring to then have a huge society brought about themselves, or just be hoarding little fuck nuggets that just sit in a cave all day with all the miles upon miles of gold that people could use to pay off their rent from now until their great descendants need to just get off loans.
Hey, we all saw The Hobbit. We get it.
I thought we were National Geographic there, the way he was explaining dragons up until he said fuck nuggets.
Oh no, that makes it National
It
Geographic.
just makes it more natural, that's all.
However,
I have a theory about this dragons thing, V.
Go
Sorry to
for it.
interrupt. What if dragons is a... Why is that so loud? What if dragons are a... Remember... I'm sorry, I have to turn something off here.
Sir, we're in the middle of doing something. Can you keep your
Well,
side
the-
shit
the
to yourself?
Loud. Anyways, okay, so, I don't know. Every culture, every history has something about dragons. Different forms of dragons. You know, in Asia, the dragons are the long serpent-like with the tiny hands.
and bird were like
T-Rex
wings,
Like one of these.
except without the bird wings.
Yeah. In medieval times, they are more dinosaur-like. They have much more robust legs. Their body is bigger. Yes, much like that. But if you look at anywhere, dragons exist everywhere. So I thought, well, maybe humans and dinosaurs existed at one point at the same time before their extinction.
It's a
But
possibility.
since we haven't found a human that old, or human remains that old yet, I wonder if maybe an ancestor of ours, like before we were Homo sapien, and they started the cave drawings and whatnot, were handing down stories of dragons, or not dragons, dinosaurs. They were, and we just fantasized or made them bigger than what they actually are. Or maybe dragons just existed. Who knows?
We shall never know.
Well, there's also a prevailing
You like that
theory.
Speak up.
Well, there's a prevailing theory that multiple universes exist. This is a common known theory. But that there are intersection points where these particular universes are really close together. At those points, sometimes you can cross over. Now, what happens if somebody from our world happened to cross into a world where dragons are as common as houseflies? They cross over, they see these magical beasts, and they come back because they never really leave our world. This is just where the two are completely overlapping. So they're seeing our world with another world overlap. So they see a dragon, and they're like, holy shit, that is a really big fucking lizard.
That's a really big lizard.
And then they run into town, and they tell this fanciful story, and they're called insane, but then the stories start becoming more common. They become more prevalent. So they start worshipping these beings, and that elevates them to deital status.
At least in
Japan,
Asia.
China. Actually, some Europeans still worship dragons. There were several cults that were draconic in nature.
Oh, true.
So, and we call them cults only because they were not of the Christian or Catholic faith. They were basically people who worshipped a god that wasn't
A god.
Yeah.
Did this cult try to kill its members?
No.
Then it's not a cult.
Then it's a nice cult.
Yeah. It also didn't brainwash its members either. So it was
Sure.
actually a really, really passive cult.
One of
Unlike
the
Bush
theories,
Hartman.
right?
It's more like they just kind of
So
showed
it
up.
was- so
It's
it-
a meeting group. They showed up every
It was
Friday.
a religion.
Yes.
Right.
So the like I said though, the prevailing theory is that what we were seeing is not necessarily in this universe, and that's also the prevailing theory for a lot of cryptids as well. What we're seeing is not actually here, but in fact something that is at a crossroads or happened, and if it is here, it happened to come from a crossroad. And that's why it also disappears too.
I like the theory. There's a movie with Matthew McConaughey, came out in the late 90s, involved dragons. I can't remember the name of it now.
Dragonheart?
Not sure.
Not Dragonheart.
No. You twit.
Matthew McConaughey is driving a tank in the thing, so I know it's not Dragonheart.
Oh,
Remember
Dragonfire.
Mm-hmm.
that? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
No.
Dragonfire.
No.
No, I don't.
That's
think
not- it's not called
Dragonfire.
Dragonfire.
It's fire or something.
Yeah, it's fire
Fire-
something.
Fire-
But anyways, I know which one you're talking about.
It's the one where the little kid finds a dragon
They
egg.
dig down because apparently they were well in the earth because it's nice and warm, and this mining company
They
dug
were-
too deep and woke them the fuck up. They came back to the surface.
And at the end, the guy with the axe dies because
Hellfire? No, it's not Hellfire.
Um,
Something fire.
I'm-
Pretty
he's
sure.
Googling it. I'm Googling it.
Get it,
I'm not
get it, get
Googling
it.
shit. I'm trying to give her an email.
No. Well, let me say my theory real quick, and this is just. I wouldn't say it's the one that I absolutely 100% believe, but it is a theory that I've come across and went, that's possible. If we think that dragons are all magical, as they are often shown in either the eastern side of the world or the western side of the world, it's quite possible that these beings dis-freaking-peered because they were just like, alright, this world's going to shit, we're leaving. We're ascending into greater beings than we are, and they just left because they were like, you know what? Never mind.
Another theory I'd heard. Rain of Fire, by the way.
Rain of fire.
Rain
there we
of
go.
fire.
Rain of Fire. That's it.
You're welcome. Another theory is that each universe has certain beings that maintain them. Their job is to go in and try and keep the balance until things shift towards the it needs to reset level.
Those are the blondes. Those are the blondes, and they're aliens, and they live deep inside the Earth in the Arctic Circle.
There's as I said, there's multiple theories about what they are, but there's also theories that they also had several majestic forms, like the form of a dragon. In China, there's several beliefs that these deities were the ones that were helping to balance, like they would take in corruption and give off new life.
Like
so,
Eugene.
I'm just hoping for Dragon Balls. That's all I'm hoping for.
oh yeah. Well, wait, what are you doing with the dragon's balls?
Immortality.
Speaking of which, if I may take the floor from all three
Yes,
of you.
go right
No,
ahead.
it's my floor.
Shut up.
The thing about how popular anything is, like what we've discussed in many different podcasts already, nothing popular ends up being the same status quo as it has been from many years beforehand. It has to become very popular into pop culture to make it seem much more fantastical than what it has to be. Whether it's TV show, movies, video games, books, or probably just weird tattoos people get because they want to feel cool. All of those different factions. Hi, Phoenix! And it's just
Hi.
kind of like one of those things of which ones did it better, but which ones also did it the worst type of thing in the interpretation game, like anything.
Well, the problem with interpretation is each one's subjective.
True.
So, for instance, I thought Dragonheart was one of the greatest dragon movies ever made.
Until
still-
Dragonheart 2 came out, and that shit was stupid.
Dragonheart 2 wasn't bad. Dragonheart 3
Dude,
was stupid.
There's a third one?
There's 5.
Alright, there. Vinny, stop.
Actually, I was about to open up the floor for people to say what their subjective taste of bad and worst were.
I was reading his mind and continued from there.
Nye, 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 nye.
You should be as
So,
I'm
I wanna
insane
know-
as
special.
we
I'm the
are.
teacher's pet. Nye, nye, nye.
I want to know exactly how much the dragon has changed in lore over the years, considering, now take this into account, the first time a dragon was mentioned in written lore or story is Beowulf, which is thought to be the first story ever written.
Technically not true. That's only in the English. In the other side of the world, the first one was of the man and the serpent, where they just considered it to be just a mystical sky serpent that just happened to bless a certain island. It's not specifically what the island was or what the people were today, but that was one of the official written ones when during the early days before Asia and Japan and all these other nations over on the west were solidified into what they were.
So a sky serpent, wouldn't that still constitute like a pterodactyl or a dragon in your mind?
It's well, in order for this to work, I think we should start with constituting what a dragon is and is not. For instance, there are several Zeocaudal, which are
Those are, in
Mayan,
fact, flying snakes.
but they are in fact dragons. They are scaled, they have teeth, they usually have some kind of breath weapon. They fit all of the same constitutions of what we consider a European dragon has.
True, but they
But
are a
their
species
form-
of dragon.
Usually has feathered wings as opposed to
Which are
leathery wings.
Asian dragons.
Well, these ones are Mayan, Aztec, and of that nature.
Technically, Quetzalcoatl isn't a dragon, though.
You're right. But you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There are species of that particular culture where they show dragons. But what constitutes a dragon? Our culture is led to believe that, like for instance in the European style, you get this, where it's a 4-legged, winged beast.
That
Like
terrorizes
Flying Tyrannosaurus
countryside.
Rex.
Exactly.
Right.
Terrorizes countrysides, incinerates homes,
Whereas if you
shits
go
on your
to
lawn.
Asia and you go, what's a dragon? They will mention this long, Shenlong looking motherfucker.
For you DBZ buffs, you'll know what that is.
Well, not even just DBZ.
Almost-
Shenlong's an actual god. So.
True.
Nye, 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 nye.
Almost
Nye,
similar
nye,
to the world serpent in Viking lore, only this one has wings.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here's the other thing. Some serpents are, in fact, dragons. But not all dragons are serpents.
Racist.
So it's... I think we need to try and narrow down what is a dragon.
Well,
Does it need
in
4
opinion-
legs and wings? Does it need minimum of 4 legs? Is 2 legs okay? I mean, what constitutes an actual physical description of a dragon?
Just watch How to Train Your Dragon. Watch How to Train Your Dragon, and that'll answer all your questions.
Exactly.
That answers one category.
So, every dragon that I've ever seen that has been referenced has had 4 legs. The size of those legs, however, they range from T-Rex arms and fat, legs to the T-Rex arms and T-Rex legs. Well, not T-Rex legs, but like the serpent legs, the legs that fold back and they hide in the Asian lore, as opposed to like the European dragons that always have 4 legs, but they're larger legs, right?
And they have like
And they're not.
big fashion model arms and legs, like you're trying to walk on. Who wants to be the next dragon model?
Or what about wyverns?
Yeah.
Are wyverns considered a form of dragon?
No, they're like a subspecies category of the link between serpents and dragons. They're not.
Is that the one where they don't have front arms, but they have the front wings that have the thumbs
There are
and stuff?
dragons that have that same description, but they are much bigger.
Oh.
But that's my point. What classifies a dragon? Because wyverns, in most lore that I've read, are not considered dragons.
They're the link between the two, but they're not full dragons.
There's
It's
a
like-
missing link.
What happens if dragons get horny and take on the shape of another creature? That's what happened with a wyvern. They pulled a Zeus and called it a good day.
Only without the whole, we're gonna make
So-
your whole kid suffer because you got fucked by a god.
Yeah.
So one thing we can agree on: dragons have wings.
Yes.
And they have at
No.
least-
Well, no.
Asian dragons do not have wings.
some don't. It's
Right,
weird.
they don't.
Shenlong did not have wings, but he did fly.
But there are some that
Magics.
have avian wings.
True.
Some have bird wings, some have bat
Like,
wings.
for those of you who've ever played Rune Factory 4, Ventus will. Her wings are feathered.
Or if you guys have seen like Shreeves, myself, or Aaron and Jenny stream for Final Fantasy X, there's Bahamut that had in that form avian wings, which is tied to the original Asian lore for how dragons can look and appear.
Which, don't
I
get me
just thought
started
that
on
the
that.
Asian
He looks like a
dragons had
bird.
tiny wings.
Not necessarily. Asian dragons actually had, I think it was 6 general forms.
Okay, so
But
the never-ending story.
Oh my
Yes.
god, that is not a dragon. That is a dog snake.
No,
Kill
that's,
it with
that's still
fire.
a dragon. That's still
No,
a dragon Shreeves.
Kill it!
Let
It
it
can
that
fly.
let it go.
No, never.
It's serpent-like nature.
Let me mind
Has
my
more
It's a
legs.
dog
Let's
snake.
go.
it pants.
Let it go! Let it go! Dog snake doesn't exist anymore! Okay.
I always thought that was a dragon as well.
It
It
is.
is.
Yeah,
But it's the
fine.
dream dragons. I think.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. It's in the story. Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Anyways,
Neverending Story, actually, that dragon is based on an actual serpent of lore.
There's an actual dog snake dragon?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my god, kill it with fire.
Well, it kind of resembles the Chinese paper dragons they make for the parade.
Yeah, for the Chinese.
The original Dream Dragon, its purpose was to lead children in their sleep to the afterlife.
Which is very, very unsettling when you think about it.
So it's Peter Pan, but you're asleep.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And that was the being that it would come and it would appear, and that's why it had that dog face. It was supposed to be very cute, it made children want to come to it.
What if you're not a dog person?
Then
even as a
fuck
kid.
you, I
Then he
guess.
ripped your fucking head off.
It shits you out.
It's
Not
basically
a
just
dog
like
fan?
a
Well,
huge
fuck
fuck you in that opinion.
The whole point was you weren't supposed to be afraid of it.
No,
So it would go out of its way to befriend you
Mhm.
and then guide you
To the afterlife.
to the afterlife. And it
So-
would go on. It would go on a whatever it had to do to get you ready to go to the afterlife. So if you had some,
Where do you want to go next, Timmy? I want to see my grandma. Oh. What else do you want to do, Timmy?
we can't go that far now. Let's keep going. No, the whole point was they would have it was stated that the dragon would take you on quests to help ease your connection to this reality.
Mm.
So
EMT is setting in.
So yeah, So the whole point is, if you think about it that way, Neverending Story has a really messed up storyline.
When you think about it in the actual
Hey, I love that
connotations,
movie
it's
growing
just very, very much darker than it should be. Like when the horse is in the thing, it's like, oh, okay, this is definitely a lot worse now that you think about it, because it's kind of like, I'm gonna lead you on this adventure here, Atreyu.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh wait, fuck. This is basically trying to lead him to the afterlife.
Helping him to pass on and to remove all grudges with earthly forms.
Holy shit.
Yeah, he died young, so he never had a girlfriend, aka the princess is now there. Now he has a love interest.
And a close best friend.
Exactly, something else he didn't have in life. So literally this quest is now just giving him everything that would have held him.
And he got to play superhero in the second one. Yay!
Oh, the second one we don't
Except
talk
for the
about.
part-
Why not? I was forced to watch both. We're talking about the second one.
Except for
At
the
least you
part
didn't have
where
to
his
watch the
horse
third.
There's
dies.
a third one?
Come on.
Jack Black is in the third one.
I get it, cutting time.
you
Just
don't.
so I can
No,
bitch
no,
about it.
no,
Yes.
no, you
Yes,
don't.
I have to
But,
see it now so I can bitch about it.
How about now? Are all dragon scales? I don't want to say
Leathery,
impenetrable?
scaly.
Um,
Some can be penetrable, some can't. It's depending on what their classes are within the whole
'Cause I like-
Draconin lore.
I know in the Hobbit or the original Lord of the Rings cartoon
Uh-huh.
movie, the animated movie, the only part of the dragon that could be hurt was the underbelly, and it was a specific spot. And then I saw that theme played out in many other different,
It all just kind of depends.
well, if you go back into actual dragon lore, all of them seem to have some singular weak point. Like, for instance, right here where the tonsils are, because that's where they stored their flammable gases.
Fireland.
They're-
Exactly.
They're goo.
That was one for European dragons. For Asian dragons, they tend to have what's called a reverse scale. It's a single scale that is actually backwards on their body, and if it's hit, it can be knocked off. And it's a direct shot right to their heart.
But then there are also the actual ones considered gods, where it's kind of like an impossibility thing, because that upsets the balance. Where if you tried to, you put the world at risk.
Right. But there's also age, because dragons go through several ages. They start out as young whelps, and then they grow into worms, and then greater worms, and then elder worms. And once they reach a certain age, at that point, no, you can't hit them, even if you successfully get the reverse scale off. You need a spear almost 30 feet long to reach the heart, to tickle it. So, at some point, dragons are pretty much fucking immortal.
Though imagine if the dragon is dumb for even 1 second. You could probably poison the son of a bitch.
Actually,
So-
no. Dragons are completely immune to poisons, regardless of species.
So
Yes.
now we're in the very fantastical end of dragons here.
This is
I wanna
probably
go-
our most
go
focused
back-
podcast yet.
Right?
I want to go back to the whole
Stop distracting us.
wherever we started. Could dragons be real? Could they have existed at one time? If they did, are they what they would be now? Or like what we
That's an
consider them as-
interesting question.
The thing about it, though, is that dragons also have that gift, or at least the Asian ones have the gift of shape-shifting. Like, for Europeans, it's kind of like you're cursed to turn to a dragon if you're very selfish, like a certain dwarf. God, I hate so.
Got a board.
Anywho, with Asian dragons, they have the ability to transform into humans, like the Manicheets from the Fire Emblem franchise, as a direct reference to them. They could actually dwell amongst humanity, actually bear half dragon, half humans, then also give them a dragon form if they choose to, and just keep on with that kind of development.
There is a European version of that. Pretty much same thing. However, their partners, oftentimes human,
Die.
die. And the dragons
Or-
themselves tend to be very brokenhearted and don't live much longer.
Or they take on draconic blood, which is one of those. It can go one of two ways.
You'll
according
die
to the
from it
lore.
or it'll fucking work.
If it works, you become almost entirely dragon. However, you cannot shift into a dragon form. You are a dragon in human form.
So basically having a human dragon appearance.
You would have small bits of scale texture, eyes of a dragon, and their lifespan. However, if it failed, you were crippled as an existence.
There you go, anime fans. We've done a nice link towards Fairy Tail. You're welcome.
So would you say that Scandinavian or Viking lore
Oh, that's
kind of
huge
handed
with
down-
dragons.
handed down what a dragon should be for the Europeans?
I could see it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I've always seen dragons. Everybody's like, oh, what does a dragon look like? I think, honestly, it's kind of like, have you guys seen the finch?
Oh, how it adapts?
How
I have.
a finch as a bird has over
Yes.
60 different species. Its beak varies completely, vastly, and wildly depending on where it's from and what it eats.
So you're
So
saying
if
it'd
a-
be like trimmers.
Exactly. Depending on where it exists, the food sources that it needs, and the general locale, I think dragons would have evolved to look slightly different to fit their environment. For instance,
Each
like
region being a different type of draconian subcategory.
like D&D showed, dragons that lived in swamps would tend to be darker colors like black or green
Does
and
it
have
blend in better?
more of a decay effect with their breath weapons.
By
Where-
volcanoes.
By volcanoes, they'd have more
Of a
actual
rocky-
like granite, like that hard rock look, but also be more resistant to higher temperatures.
The snowy ones I've seen in variations. Some will have scales still,
Or translucent ice-like textures.
or there have been some that I've seen that have fur,
Oh,
but they're
I've seen
still
some fur.
draconic. It's
Yes.
interesting, but it's not like bear fur.
It's feather fur.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like bird down.
yeah.
But my
Okay,
whole point is,
so-
I see it as it's all the same species, but you get different evolution patterns based on where they are.
So they can survive.
And like the Galapagos Islands.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Hey, those are
Um,
finches.
I'm gonna go back to Beowulf because I actually looked up because I wanted to know who wrote it. I thought it was a Celtic author. It's not. It was an old Anglo-Saxon author.
Hmm.
That-
He's European.
was he
Well-
the original one that wrote it or the translator?
No, this is the author isn't mentioned. Like he's
Okay.
not named, but he. Hold on a second. The author was an anonymous Anglo-Saxon poet, referred to by scholars as the Beowulf author.
Okay.
Okay, so he's European, but Beowulf actually takes place in Scandinavia.
Correct.
So I'm wondering, and please, this may be far-fetched, not that we've gone there before.
Us never.
Look at
Homer.
the almost 60 podcasts we've done already and tell us if we haven't already.
Now, I'm gonna make a this is a huge leap though. Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
And there are many elements in those stories that are fantastical. The mermaids, the giants, the cyclopses.
The
things
fact
like
that Agamemnon didn't get killed.
But the Battle of Troy and the
Yes.
Trojan Horse, Achilles, all of these things that happened at Troy, and then in the 90s they found Troy.
Oh yeah, they did.
They did. They found Troy. They found evidence of a massive battle, probably the largest of that age. Which that's when history and myth tie into reality and historical. So I'm looking at the Beowulf story, and although Beowulf is not mentioned in any other Scandinavian writings other than this one, many of the figures and historical events in the story actually did happen and are mentioned in other Scandinavian writings.
Correct.
Do you think this could be, like, I guess it wouldn't be the West's, but the Scandinavian or the European Iliad and Odyssey?
I could see it, but also I could see a lot of because you guys also gotta remember I'm a very spiritual individual where I don't really think reality is what we see it to be. I believe there's a lot of things that cannot be explained no matter how much science you throw my way because nothing is ever truly explainable. As such, from my own standpoint, I can't rule out that anything involving old text couldn't have happened because nothing is impossible in this reality, or in any reality.
See, I think there's more extinction level events than we realize. You look at every age. You look at the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, blah 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 blah. Right? You could say those are local extinction events.
Right.
Oh, we don't know why they disappeared. There's no historical writings as to why they disappeared. They just disappeared one day. Even though, like, the Spanish conquistadors were there, well, there's a lot to say that there's... Okay, go ahead. Just go ahead. I can see you. Just do it.
I was being nice. I was just letting you know I had a thought. And this is a really short thought. A what if you will. As it stands, everybody just assumes, oh, well, for instance, the Bible, for instance. Everybody's like, well, Noah's Ark had to happen because the Bible wrote it. I'm not going to discredit the Bible. I could honestly make a whole podcast about how my whole opinion on the subject. But taking Noah's Ark as an example, what if, rather than this time around, what if this is in fact one of those kind of Noah's Ark moments where the world itself has to be reset? Think
That's what
Matrix.
I'm saying.
Think Matrix style, where what happens is a supreme being, let's say a dragon, happens to pick out 23 males and 17 males, 23 females. There you go, a little more Matrix for you.
Mm-hmm.
And resets the world. Now, with that reset, it would also reset everything from the core out. So evidence of past events would have been gone. However, word of mouth would still be around. So what if these fantastical stories are not about this cycle, but are in fact, like dragons, are a pullover from a previous cycle of existence?
That is exactly the point I was going to get to. You just beat me to it.
I'm sorry.
But I'm instead of, like, you know, everything gets wiped out from the inside out, so there's no evidence. I'm saying there is evidence. Obviously, there's evidence. You can only bury things so deep, right?
But it only comes
rises
back
to the
as
surface.
dreams.
My question is, how many decades, centuries, or whatever are between those eras? You know what I mean? So, okay, we need to reset. Let's wipe it out. How long does it sit?
I don't think anybody
You know
really
what I mean?
knows.
Keep it for there. But you know what I mean? You can't destroy an entire civilization like Egypt overnight.
Right.
Even though there's an explanation for it in the Bible, right? I mean, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure, totally.
In the Bible, yeah.
Yeah, something that was
Yeah.
written by man, and they haven't been adding words recently.
Take Atlantis, for example.
That place fucking existed.
The Noah's Ark.
So did the
Noah's
Lost
Ark,
Continent
the flood
of Mu.
story. The only reason I can't, wholly say that I believe entirely in that one thing is because there have been so many great floods, right?
Right. They
There
have
have
proof
been
of that.
so many great floods, especially in that area of the world.
Well, look at the Temple of Alexander. Temple of Alexander was lost to the sea. It was several hundred miles inland, lost to the
Right.
sea.
We also
Right.
had another continent that was lost to the Sea of Mu. We actually
So-
did have 8 continents, but it was washed up by the sea, which is where people also believe where Atlantis was located nearby.
Oh.
So what the hell happened to Egypt that they became they were gone, and then how many years later, thousands of years later, or 1,000 years later, we're rediscovering their ancient shit and having to relearn their language? What, nobody survived from that to pass down the language? We had
Clearly
to
not,
set
because
for it
all
out for
of
ourselves.
the Egyptians that live there now, they don't know that language either. That's something
Well,
that was
that's what I'm
forgotten
saying.
in time.
It's not the first time that we've had events where people just disappeared. Look at Roanoke.
Yeah, Roanoke had,
Island.
like, what?
Literally
Yeah, but I
just...
can still read the messages that they left behind on the stones and the tree carvings.
But
I
that's-
can still read that.
But that's because
True.
it was
You know
so
what I-
recent. If that had happened 1,000 years ago, or more,
Yeah, most
it
likely
would have
we
been
wouldn't be
much
able to
harder.
read
The
it.
tree that they wrote Croatoa on would be gone.
True.
So the reality is, it just depends on how big a gap it was between when we found it and when it happened. That was
Yeah, but
they
it-
disappeared
as-
within
as-
months.
But this is the problem with that theory, okay? And this is my only problem with it. Humans are good at a couple of things. one of those things that humans are good at is writing shit down and explaining to the next generation how it works.
Gentlemen,
So,
we gotta get back on topic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we went like
As you can now see,
This
we have now
is
worked
all
out a
tying
new
into
system
Dragons.
now to bring back topics now.
oh,
this is
but
all
this would
tying
make
back
a
to the
really
dragons.
cool podcast though for a future thing. I'd love to talk more about this though.
Put it on the board for November.
It was going to all tie back into dragons because I'm thinking, what if dragons existed in one of these ages?
Oh, they
That's
did.
why I started with Beowulf, right?
Right.
So what if one of these ages actually coincided with maybe they weren't dragons as we know them, but maybe they were dinosaurs, like I was brought up in the beginning, where we existed at one time. You know the game Ark?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I
Where
know
you
it with
run
none
on
of us.
raptors
Well,
and
I
shit.
haven't played it anyways.
What if, rather than
Dragons are just pterodactyls.
What if, I'm going to cross theories here. What if, rather than starting fresh or destroying a world and rebuilding it, what if we crossed over through, what if humans were originally from another universe? They weren't originally here. But where we were from, dragons were prevalent. But we happened to cross through some of those rifts, those crossings I was telling you about. And we came to this world and found it habitable. There's fruit, there's trees, there's things we can grow and eat, there are things we can catch. So they started bringing people to this world. And it was before the time of written messages. And if you go to, there are ancient caves where there are images of portals,
True.
gateways, if you will. But they're drawn like circles with
Ooh.
fuzzy edges. And we couldn't figure out what those circles were.
Because they were missing their
My-
companion cube.
Yes. My theory is that those were the gateways that went between the worlds, and we are actually from an alternate world. That's why you don't have physical evidence of dragons here, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. They do exist, but not in this universe.
You ever seen Mission to Mars, Phoenix?
Maybe.
I think
One
you
of my
have.
favorite movies because it kind of takes what you just said, but to it. So there was a civilization on Mars,
Right.
and they destroyed their planet, had to leave it, so they went to a different universe. But before leaving, they left clues
Right.
for us to find and left DNA on Earth because it was habitable at the time for us to evolve, so that if we ever wanted to find them and come home, we could.
Right. I think I have seen it.
I feel like you
a
have,
good
and I
one.
feel like I watched it with you. But anyways,
Good one.
I like that theory though. It
It would
kind of
explain
reminds me
quite
of
a
the
bit.
one theory. I don't know what that theory's called, but you know the Bernstein and the Bernstein thing. That one
Mandela
thing.
effect.
Yeah, the Mandela effect.
effect.
What if, in a weird way, the Mandela effect somehow affected that?
Well,
Okay.
you know that
I've
there's
never
a
heard that
dark
one.
side to that whole
What's the
Mandela,
Mandela
effect thing,
effect?
right?
Mandela effect started as like an example of Berenstein and Berenstein bears, kind of like word association being kind of the misinterpretation method of how your own mind intakes information and then redistributes it as your own optical thing. And I think what
people
Shreve's going
saw
with is that what we originally saw and then just misinterpreted as a different sort of species in our mind, and then had that different word association with another species.
Right. But what he means more on that, I don't know if you grew up with the Bernstein Bears, because that's how I grew up with it, but then in the last...
Bernstein.
Right, in the
Bernstein
last
Bears.
5 years, people were being corrected going, no, it was pronounced Bernstein. And you look like, no, that's bullshit, and you go look at the book and you're like, oh my god.
It's Bernstin. Bernstein. It's Bernstein.
But
But
Besides the
I
point.
think the problem here is I think people see the name and they recognize the way it's spelled, and when you see when you see the way a word is spelled, especially when it's got the Stein at the end of it or that specific type, I believe on the books it's Stain. It's the Berenstain Bears.
I don't know, it's been so long.
I had it as Steam when I came here, so
Yeah.
Right, well, and that's how I pronounced it too as a kid. I think it's a misperception, like B was saying. It's a mis. You read it one way, but that's just not actually the way it is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Though I also like the theory that maybe they just went in hiding and either they are humans that are roaming around the earth because they know that there is going to be no safe way to...
The lizard?
The lizard people. Yeah.
It depends on whether you got the Berenstain thing starts. It depends on whether you got the original or the translated version. Originally it was not in a European or an American written book. It was originally spelled A-I-N. Once it was brought to the U.S., it was changed to E-I-N for several years until it was caught and changed back to A-I-N. So as kids, we remember E-I-N because that's what we read. However, that's not the original spelling. So, whatever theories were made about that.
It has to
But
do
the
with
Mandela
the
effect still
pronunciation of it from the
exists,
original
though.
country.
It is a real thing.
Is it from Germany, Phoenix?
It was either German or Russian. I can't remember which one
See,
it said.
God,
so
I
that's
hope
where
it's
that
not
comes
Russian.
from. In German language, EI makes an I sound, and AI also makes an I sound. So no matter how they say it, over in Germany it'd be Berenstain, right? So when they brought it over here, all the Steins over here would have been EIN,
Mhm.
Einstein, all of them.
Right.
So somebody decided, okay, Berenstain. Then they wrote it that way, and then it was corrected.
Since we're still covering dragons and we still have a bit of time to do so, what is everyone's favorite either classification, species, or just overall look of dragons?
Let's go to our two most talkative talkers. Aaron, Phoenix.
Well, you haven't talked so much, V. What's your favorite dragon?
Come on, bitch. Pony up.
I'm letting the two talkers go first, then it's gonna be me and Shweeps.
Okay. You go first, Phoenix.
When you think dragon, what's your favorite?
Oh, Bahamut. Hands down.
Wait,
Which
which
version?
version?
There's
Because if you
like
say 10, I'll
17
slap you, because 10 he
classifications
looks
of-
like a bird.
I'm talking the original Bahamut god, where he
Oh.
has 6 wings and is in fact a being that all the Final Fantasy Bahamuts are based on. He would, if you had a wish for him, he would give you 10 seconds to explain why he should even listen to you. And if you failed to catch his interest, he obliterated your existence because you're wasting his time. He, as a deity, was supposed to be governing the universe. So he has a lot of shit he has to take care of. So he'd give you 10 seconds to explain why he should give a shit. And most people didn't succeed in catching his interest. But that is where Bahamut gets his, oh, you have 5 turns to kick my ass.
Then how do you explain the one in Final Fantasy XIV that actually destroyed all of reality?
Apparently they failed to keep his interest.
That would make sense. Alright,
All right.
Hubs, what's your favorite?
I'm gonna stretch it. This is a stretch because I don't know if this. When I look at all the topics we discussed and what makes a dragon, technically speaking, this should be a dragon, but I do not believe it is. The Phoenix.
No,
No, that's a Boyd.
Why?
It's a bird.
it's a bird.
Well, why?
Because it's a
It has-
bird.
Allow me to clarify for everyone. I'm not gonna go into how I know this as a full-on fact. Let's just say it's a long, very complicated, and very boring story for myself, at least in that last regard. But phoenixes and dragons, although technically related by a common ancestor, because phoenixes and dragons are at least cousins, but they're not each other. Like, the avian and the draconian can be related, but it's kind of like a different thing. There are many elemental birds as there are elemental dragons as a whole, but they're not the same.
To be fair, though, the phoenix is not an elemental.
No,
bird.
not the phoenix itself, but it comes from a family of elemental birds,
Like
like
the
the
thunderbird
and the aquatic eagle and other sort of things like that.
Yes.
Well, the whole
go ahead.
reason I asked was because technically, you're right, it's a bird, right? This is raven flies into the fire, and from the ashes rises the phoenix, right? It's resurrected. But the phoenix itself, after it's been resurrected, has all the properties of the dragon. You know, it has.
It does, but
that's why I asked. I won't use that one, since technically not a dragon.
But they are
I
at least
just thought I'd
cousins.
ask.
For instance, in Japan, there were 4 guardian deities created by the same god.
Actually, they're
One for-
Korean. I found that out.
Oh, they're Korean?
Yeah,
Oh.
the azure dragon, the vermilion bird, the black tortoise, and the white tiger are all
Thank you.
subservient to the golden dragon in the center.
But they're also used in Japanese lore as the guardians of the 4 cardinal directions. They were created by the same deity and came from the same egg. So technically, the original phoenix, Suzaku, and the dragon, which is Senryu, I think his name is.
Shiryu.
Shiryu, thank you. Are of the same origin through that story. So technically, there's very little difference between them other than their physical form. But as the guy who loves phoenixes most, I'm going to tell you they're not dragons.
Alright.
Well, I think that my favorite dragon is definitely the European dragon. I don't have a specific one.
Okay.
Sorry.
What about
Fair
the one
enough.
from Dragonheart?
Yep.
Everybody
Japan
loves
dragon,
Sean
that's
Connery
right.
as a dragon.
The Sean Connery dragon.
While Hubs goes to the bathroom, Schweeps, would you
Oh, yeah,
like-
there you go, calling him out on it. He's like, okay, quiet, nobody sees this, it's all good, I'll be right back. You're
What?
like,
he has bathroom breaks. We've been
it's okay, Hubs, you can go take a shit, we'll let you go.
I didn't
Calling
say
him out.
I didn't say he was
Go
taking
ahead,
a
call
shit.
him out on it. Call him, I got it.
My favorite style of dragon is also a form of European dragon, but it's the kind where the wings also have full paws on it. So it essentially has 6 appendages. Because the wings, albeit, yes, they can use it for flight, it can also be used to grab stuff, scratch enemies, and whatever. Doesn't use it, entirely during combat, but can be used to, knock a mofo down.
Sorry, thought.
What?
Under our description, wyverns and their physical structures are not dragons.
So is that what I'm
But-
describing?
No.
Oh.
What I'm thinking is, what about the dragon Smaug from The Hobbit?
Oh, he
He
was
himself.
a human cursed to be a dragon.
But he had a wyvern's body structure.
But he
Because
was
his
a
front
dragon because he was
limbs-
huge.
His front limbs are actually his wings, which is the body structure of a wyvern.
Yes.
But we have
Seen-
agreed that wyverns are not dragons. So is Smaug actually a dragon?
Technically, in Smaug's case, since European lore specifically states that they are transformed into dragons from being too greedy, then for Smaug, he is a dragon.
Right.
He just happens to have the physical structure of a wyvern.
I've seen dragons though
I
with
think
the
it's
physical structure of a wyvern though.
I think it's mostly because they didn't fully transition from their base thing into what they should be as a.
It would be harder to grow that additional limbs rather
I
than
feel
just
like
shift them.
dragons, for some reason, because we often view them as magical beasts, could choose whatever form they wanted, provided their locale and climate and
Oh, they
whatever.
do. They
So
do.
I feel like if they truly wanted, they don't want extra limbs down here, they just keep them up in their wings, they could. But enough about me. What's your favorite style of dragon, monsieur?
Oh, thank you, my big
Oh,
sis. For me, I'm just always gonna stick to the whole thing of I love Asian dragons the most. Every time I had to sit down and write a different story about stuff, I kept thinking to myself, what if I was able to write something of a dragon taking the form of a human and try and do something of a good deed for one of my protagonists? Not as an antagonist, not as a mentor figure, just as like one of these wandering spirit-like things that just wants to give some kind of pertinent advice towards a future event that would be very productive for what they want to do with what's to come in their adventure, but not be condescending about it. Kind of like, I know what's going to happen to you, Doctor. Shut up and drive the goddamn TARDIS. I kind of enjoy that most because every time I looked into things of just like how Izanagi and Izanami were trying to cultivate their own dragon children into things where they made the children of Japan as their own offspring. They never once tried to act as if they were condescending to what their offspring would be. They just made them and then when they were old enough, they left. It's kind of like that whole maternal thing, paternal/maternal thing that, as I've learned over the past 10 years of being a dad, kind of like what you've experienced it as a father, Hubs, that I kind of just appeal to that more and more than the whole selfish interpretation that the Europeans have towards dragons.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, the whole point is, for instance, in the Asian culture, they worship dragons and offer things to them. So dragons of the Asian culture were never greedy because the Asian dragons had everything they could ever want. Whereas the Europeans were the hoarders themselves, so the aspects they saw in dragons were the same aspects that they saw in themselves. I love gold. I want all the gold. This being is a greedy motherfucker because he has more gold than he could ever spend and will give me none. So he has to be a greedy fuck. You know, pot calling kettle.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't understand how
It's so
in the European
different.
culture it is so strikingly different
Mhm.
and universally set. Like, that is set in stone. European dragons are assholes who are all about collecting gold, and heaven help you if you ever accidentally take one of their coins or something they perceive as their treasure.
Because
I
they're
must have
fucking
been reading the wrong
obsessive
stories,
compulsive disorder.
They
I
treat it like,
perceive
yeah,
European dragons as noble creatures.
you're looking more into Nordic and Celtic, whereas I'm talking European is like Middle Ages, like old school Europe.
Yeah, but
Like,
they're in the same area, so that's
Yes,
all-
but-
Tell that to a Celt or a Skol or a Nordic, they will cut your face
since
off.
Scotland is
Okay.
part of the British Isles, which is in Europe.
Well,
I
then
have to tell you.
let me set the
Still
let me set
stab
the
a bitch,
boundaries
I'm
then.
just saying.
Pretty much Britain.
No, I agree.
And of that-
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but you're trying to differentiate areas and land masses that are in the same area.
Though I think dragons themselves would do that.
Hi,
as well.
Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
So I
She's-
mean, so yes, I'm reading different cultural
Culture.
Right.
Yes.
elements.
Hi, Jenny.
And
Bye,
as
Jenny.
we've pointed out,
They're saying hi and bye to you.
as we've already pointed out, culturally, the variance between respect and arrogance towards dragons is
Which would make
vastly
a lot of
different.
sense because I am myself Norwegian, so I tend to lean more. That's why I love God of War and the whole Nordic tales and all that. And then you look at again, which is odd. We figured out that the author of Beowulf was actually Anglo-Saxon, right? So that places him directly in Europe, right there, in the Middle Ages, right?
Right,
But he's writing a Celtic story.
right.
And in that Celtic story, as it evolved, the dragon became gold. Like, the dragon itself was gold. And represented Beowulf's greed.
Right.
So I guess that makes that there's your bridge right there that connects the two right there. That would explain the difference. The Europeans viewed them as greedy, evil bastards, and Nordics believed them to be deities and noble creatures. And
We're
I
born with a
understand.
goal and a purpose.
Right.
But that was my point, and it's not just that we've touched on the cultures everybody would know about. Let's point out that those aren't the only cultures with dragons.
Oh no.
Africa
no.
has dragons.
Yes, they do.
South America has dragons.
Yes.
I pointed out that the Aztecs and the Mayans had dragons.
But
Native
Quetzalcoatl is not a dragon. Once
No,
again,
he was a bird.
winged
But-
serpent.
Winged serpent.
Snake bird.
It honestly, depending on the interpretation, because he was also known as a bird.
Yeah,
in
they
some
can never
form.
get Quetzalcoatl as like a permanent form.
It depends. Are we talking Aztec, Mayan, or Incan? But we're going to move on from that. The whole point is, dragons were known all over the world. Native Americans have dragons in their lore. So,
Canadians themselves.
yeah, have dragons.
they weren't
Um,
Canadians back then.
No, they were just some guy in a shack trying
Over a
to.
really cool office party.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoop, whoop.
It's like, hey, did you see that flying serpent in the area? Oh, you drunk there, you hoser? Sit down.
What's this all about? You be stealing my maple syrup. Give it back.
You've been dipping into the maple syrup again, haven't you?
To my Canadian
Horrible.
friends, I love you. I'm just saying. You guys have awesome maple
Hey,
syrup.
we have a sister in Canada. We're good.
True.
I want to point out, it's really hard to offend the Canadians. They find us funny as fuck.
Because we are
But
just
my
weird.
point I was making is that dragons are everywhere. This is not just a major culture thing. And if you dig into dead cultures, the Greek had dragons.
Mhm.
If you go back to Pompeii, there are statues of dragons. This is not a singular phenomenon. This is not a pass through major cultures phenomenon. This is down to small villages in unknown places have fucking dragons.
The Tonkin Islands had dragons. And if you want to go like super, super ancient, I remember when I was listening to my grandpa read through the family journal when I was younger. One of like our earliest ancestors dated all the way back to Babylon because that's when they could find
Babylon's had
right.
dragons.
I was about to get
Babylonians
there.
had dragons.
Like from all the writing that we've had from like our own heritage, one of my earliest ancestors said that they actually saw a dragon in the heart of the castle of Babylon. Like not making it up, like the king and queen had a dragon in their castle. Whether it's true or
Well, that would
not,
make sense.
we will never really know because Babylon is no longer here.
Dang.
I think dragons were just freaking dinosaurs.
With giant chicken wings.
No, pterodactyls.
That too.
I'm prescribing to the theory that they are in fact the ones who help guide worlds, if you will. They show up in times of major destruction and
Like the Mothman.
pretty much just random moments, and they just kind of guide people. And they don't have to be in draconic form now. Before, they would show up in draconic form to try and get you to... Because they'd show up in that dignified form, and you would be in awe and fear of them. So when they spoke, you took their word as an important thing. Now, it's more like it would be much easier for them to show up in a human form and just appear important.
See, I had to think about it really
Wait.
hard. I would.
Like, seriously, Donald Trump could be a
No,
dragon.
don't beat me to the punch! How dare you read my mind? Fuck you.
You know,
High five.
this is definitely one of the most focused podcasts that we've ever had.
Look at
in
his
a long
face.
time.
He is so angry at my comment.
I am not. I'm
Not angry, he's fucking
He's
smiling,
like,
he's laughing.
I would nuke you right now if I had a button. Where the fuck's my button?
Well, I'm just saying
But
he's
guys-
orange as fuck.
But
Anyways.
guys, as much as this is one of our biggest accomplishments, we did get a letter from one of our peoples from the accounting division.
Oh my god, am I getting a paycheck?
No,
We actually
none of us are
funded?
getting
I didn't think
paychecks.
this was funded.
We're still not getting funded. They're just
No, but we
using
still
us.
have to pay the accounting. I don't know why. They don't do
But
anything.
they wanted to send us a letter saying that they're looking forward to the season finale.
Oh damn, we're already up to a season finale?
Last couple episodes, then we finally dropped episode 50, season finale.
Wow.
You gotta remember, like, this episode recording is like 5 episodes ahead of the ones that are actually posted to us.
True.
Like everyone's just gonna
It's
be
still
like,
impressive though.
So it's pretty much by the end of the year we'll have the season finale.
no. By the start of November, season 3 starts.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Awesome.
It's almost like it was planned.
Should I start?
We have a plan?
Wait, there's
Wait,
a plan.
guys, there was something really important I had to tell you guys. As far as dragons go, their mating season usually starts at a certain point, and now we're going to get into the actual physical reproduction. The male would then start with his.
Got money on my mind every day. Please don't play with mine, put it in the bag. Usually I can leave it in the past. You gon' make me have to show my ass. Ooh, I can love you till the sun comes up. Let me love your body down. You don't even really gotta ask. I'ma love you better than the rest. I'll be like, ooh, say something, say something, say